So, what do you get when you take a former bartender plus a known fire alarm hoaxer and you add in some ratchet music? Well, just another day of far left Democrat campaigning, I suppose. The show starts in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked because he's in his 80s and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and he has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making just one small change, and he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Well, Chuck made a special video that explains everything, so make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Tommy because it will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Tommy, and you won't believe how simple it is. So there's been a lot of chatter as of late about how divided the Democrat Party is, and that couldn't be more apparent because on the one side you have Sleepy Joe, who needs his Obama visiting angel to maneuver off of a basic stage. He's slow, old, no energy. And then on the other side of the donkey party, you have, well, whatever the hell this is. What in the actual hell are we watching? A campaign event or the lamest episode of Wild 'N Out? I'm not really sure, but look, as bizarre, erratic, and weird as that performance was, I know that Joe Biden's handlers are calling up AOC and Jamaal Bowman and getting whatever they're on, a prescription for Joe, so he can figure out what to do with that CNN debate on Thursday. That is for sure. But join me now with his take on that and so much more as political commentator Grant Stinchfield. Grant, it's great to have you. I'm not exactly sure what we were watching. I'm not so sure that's going to get people riled up to go vote. But my personal theory is that both of those two really want to be housewives on Bravo, and that was their audition tape. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, or they've been watching Dana White and Trump come into a UFC event, and then the fighters come in, the crowd goes crazy, everybody's loving it. And it looked to me like it was either like professional wrestling. I don't know what they're doing there, but it just shows you the desperation from their part. And then, of course, the crowd is oblivious that they have nothing to say. So I guess they just dance around and try and entertain them that way, Tommy.
And Bowman was actually hurling F-bombs right and left. I mean, they played a clip this morning on Fox News, and it was like something like 10 or 11 times. He's just screaming the F word. And I mean, there was no policy positions there. They also, of course, called out AIPAC. We know that they're anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and some of the things that they're saying, at least that's how it strikes me. But, you know, he's actually facing a real primary challenge here. Hillary Clinton is backing his opponent. So to me, that shows there's a real divide within the Democrat Party with these far left folks and then the more establishment types like the Hillary Clinton. And then I think you have Joe Biden that should actually skew more establishment, but because he's not running everything and he's actually, to me, what appears to be more of a vegetable, it feels like he's letting these far left activists actually control the party. I'm wondering if that's your sense as well. Are they who are actually in control here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to watch Hillary Clinton now start to move against the radical left. I mean, the radical left of the Democrat Party has ruined the Democrat Party. I mean, I live in Texas. You have to go back decades to where you could get a common sense Democrat. I don't think it has existed for decades, Tommy. But you have people like Hillary Clinton now maybe pushing back a little bit against the radical faction because the radical faction has turned America off against these radical policies. And they know they are never going to win that back. When you look at what is happening with minorities in President Trump, when you look at what is happening with women in President Trump, all moving over into his camp, they know they have real problems. The Jamaal Bowmans and AOCs and Elizabeth Warrens of the world think doubling down on radical policies is going to be a good idea. I think Hillary Clinton realizes it's not. Joe Biden is so far gone, though, and he's so transactional. He just makes deals with whoever he thinks he can, or his handlers make deals with whoever he thinks he can in order to keep this power going. But again, that's backfired on him, too, which is why I think you see President Trump in the position that he is, and that's a great position.
But Joe is still leaning on AOC and others to go out and campaign on his behalf. Doesn't make a lot of sense. We know AOC is trying to help Jamaal Bowman in this current case. Bernie Sanders was also there to try to help Bowman. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'm not sure if that really gets people in that district excited. But also, here's a clip of AOC and Bowman again pleading with voters. They're high energy. I'm not sure what they're on, but like I said, I think Joe needs some of it. Let's take a look at this.
What's up, everybody? We are just a few days out till the election day, our primary election on Tuesday, June 25th. But the good news is that the polls are open right now, and we are here for our brother, Jamaal Bowman. We want to turn out the vote. I don't care if you live in New York 16 and are turning out to vote for him. I don't care if you live outside New York 16. We are texting our friends. We are turning out. We are calling our friends in Tuckahoe, in White Plains, in New Rochelle, in Yonkers, and telling them to vote for Jamaal Bowman.
Ceasefire now, y'all. That's what we're doing.
Right.
Ceasefire now. Let's get it
That's
popping.
right.
The polls are open today. The polls are open tomorrow. Make sure you get out to vote. Election day is Tuesday. Let's go. We need record turnout all across the district, especially in Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Co-op City, and Edenwald. Let's get it popping. Let's change the world. It's the many versus the money. We're going to win.
Right.
Let's go, baby.
We're going to win. We're going to take on AIPAC, and we're going to kick some Wall Street ass. So let's go.
Stop the bombs.
Stop the bomb. Ceasefire now. Let's get it poppin'. I don't know. That didn't convince me, but maybe I'm just a different constituent.
Wait a second, Tommy. You mean yelling at the camera, acting like a cross between a rap star and that YouTube guy who goes and interviews people yelling and screaming in New York City, like in Times Square? They just start yelling at the camera. That doesn't convince you to vote for them?
I just don't know. I don't know if that's a winning strategy for either of those two. If I were Joe Biden, I'd want those two to be far, far away from my campaign. I think that America is sick of woke. And the fact that they keep using this ceasefire now thing as if anybody outside of the little campus terrorists who are 18 and 19 years old are actually voting for that. Maybe some folks in Michigan who are also terror sympathizers. But I really don't see this as a winning strategy, talking about ceasefire now. I don't think when people can't afford groceries or rent or their mortgage, I don't think ceasefire now is at the tip of their tongue. But I think these two just desperately want to be popular, and I think they desperately want to be famous. AOC tries to cling to people like Cardi B in desperate hopes that somehow she will be a celebrity. It's not going to work. But I want to move on now to, you mentioned, kind of the other side of all of that, and that's Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is not skipping a beat. He's out. He's campaigning. He was in Philadelphia, and not a fancy area of Philly, by the way, an area that by his own description and other descriptions is kind of a rough area. He's showing out there anyway. And then you contrast that to Joe Biden, who's sitting in some kind of, I don't know, a chamber somewhere preparing for the CNN presidential debate on Thursday. I think to me it says even more so, Donald Trump can debate and also speak and also campaign and also rally and also sit in a courtroom, and Joe Biden has to take a week and a half to speak for 90 minutes. Do you think that the public is paying attention to this, or just people that are invested in politics?
No. I really think more than ever before, Tommy, that the public is paying attention. They see President Trump going into places where Republican candidates were not going. And you're looking at these minority communities. You're looking at working class communities. What he's doing with no tax on tips, that's for the working class. Whatever you say about, should we have taxes equal? If everybody pays this, that, it doesn't matter. I like the idea of lowering taxes and helping the working class. Joe Biden's not helping the working class. Joe Biden's not going in and buying Philly cheesesteaks for people to a packed crowd in the middle of Philadelphia. He goes into a gas station. He can't get 6 people there. Holds a rally. He can't get 10 people there. I mean, so what you're seeing with Donald Trump, to me, is the equivalent of a rocket ship right now. I think, Tommy, and I mean this when I tell you this, I think he is in the best position than he has ever been in any campaign that he's run. And that goes all the way back to 2016. He's more poised to win this election than he was back then, because people are now waking up to the hoax of the Democrat Party, to the radical ideas that do not work for everyday Americans. And they're seeing President Trump, who's got real solutions. You're talking about AOC and Bowman. They're empty suits. They have no policy. There's no substance, just like Joe Biden. No substance, no policy, no nothing. From President Trump, you get it all. It's the total package.
I want to talk about who you think Trump's running mate is going to be. We heard over the weekend at that Philly rally, he told reporters that he has actually picked somebody in his mind. He hasn't told that person, he hasn't told anyone yet, but he also said that they were going to be present at that CNN presidential debate later this week. We know there's no audience, but he's still going to have people around him, obviously before, after, and that person is going to be there. So I want to get your take on who you think it's going to be, but I also want to ask you on the other side of things. I think I've been saying for a long time the reason that debate has been scheduled in June, which is kind of unheard of for a presidential debate to happen that quick, is because it's make or break for Joe and the Democrat Party. They need time to swap him out. I think they're going to swap him out regardless of if he's jacked up Joe or not. But what I think is really interesting on that side of it is when you talk about the theories about Joe Biden being replaced, and I firmly believe he's going to be, but even the people that don't know who he's going to be replaced with, or they want him to be replaced, or they don't want Joe to run, I've noticed that nobody is saying Kamala Harris. Nobody on the Democrat side, no Democrat commentator is saying Joe needs to step aside, let the first female do it, first black female needs to step into those shoes. Even when the Democrats talk about it, they're not throwing Kamala's name out there. They're throwing Gavin, they're throwing Shapiro, they're throwing Whitmer, but nobody is saying Kamala. Do you think that's weird?
I don't, because I think she's a complete idiot and a buffoon. And all you have to do is look at what she was doing over the weekend. Word salad after word salad after word salad all weekend long. And you mentioned the names that everybody talks about, Tommy, like Whitmer and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's not liked. I do radio out in LA. I live in Dallas, but I do morning drive in LA. Gavin Newsom's despised. Even by hardcore liberals, they know he's just slimy, this guy. He's not going to play for America. Here's what I'm going to tell you who I think they're really starting to push out now. This Governor Wes Moore in Maryland. He's a black guy. He's a military guy. Seems to be a smart dude. Very likable. He's personable. His policies and politics are all wrong. You and I wouldn't like that. But he is being marched out here. I think this is the very quiet one behind the scenes that I think they're getting ready to push to the top of the front. And it's a good thing for the Democrats that he's virtually unknown nationally, because they can literally make him whoever they want to be. Remember, they turned Barack Obama into the Messiah in 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you that they're looking for somebody, but I feel like if they're going to do the bait and switch at the last minute, because it's going to be the last minute, I feel like they have to have somebody that's at least known nationally. And I think that you're right about they want to, not have a lot of time for people to do any deep diving. They want to make it quick so that they don't have a lot of, oppo research on this person. But I still feel like they're going to need somebody that's at least comfortable for America, that at least is known. And that's why I continually say Gavin Newsom. I know California is a disaster. But the thing that I often say to people that say Gavin is not on the table is that if you're willing to vote for Joe Biden and you're really on that edge and you're really having to consider Bag of Bones Joe over Donald Trump, then you will vote for Gavin Newsom if that person is now put in your path.
So here's the monkey wrench in all of it. You have to remember that Joe Biden is still the sitting president. So he has to agree to step aside. This is something he's wanted all his life. I honestly don't think you're going to see Joe step aside. So I agree that Democrats are now strategizing on who should be next. And I understand the thought about Gavin Newsom, because he does make sense from what you're talking about there. But I think the big monkey wrench is that Joe Biden's going to say no. He's not going anywhere. I think it'll be Joe Biden come November, because he's not going to leave. And Jill Biden is just as power hungry as Joe is. She's just as responsible for this elder abuse as anybody else that's keeping him in office right now.
I just don't get the sense from Democrats and the way we watch them move and maneuver and slither. I don't get the impression from the Democrat Party that Joe can cling on, even if Joe wants to cling on. I don't get the impression from them that they really care. I think it's all about strategy. I think that they would like Joe to step aside voluntarily, but I, quite frankly, seeing how cutthroat Democrats are and what they're willing to do, I don't think it's going to be a matter of, oh boy, if we can't convince him, I guess we'll just lose. I don't take Democrats as being that that vulnerable, that maneuverable, at least from Joe's perspective on them. I just think they're going to do what they want to do.
So what do, Tommy? Then what do they do? Do they remove him? Do they move to somehow get him ousted? Do they move on Hunter Biden? Do they start releasing some of the tapes? You know, we got Merrick Garland not releasing these tapes, which I think are going to be very damning for Joe Biden. Maybe that's their ace in the hole, that when they get to the point after the debate, wouldn't it be interesting if he really screws up in the debate, as I expect him to, even if he is jacked up, maybe that's when they say, okay, we say uncle, we'll release these tapes, these Robert Hur tapes, and it just shows him, you know, he can't remember his son's name or when his son died and when he was vice president. Maybe that's their ace in the hole.
Yep. And I think this whole last week and a half of them trying to call out the cheap fakes, which we know are actual video footage of their president. I said it last week on Hannity. I believe that the reason that they're creating so much hoopla and making up words like cheap fakes is not actually because they're trying to cover for Joe, but rather they're trying to draw attention to it. I believe that as much as they're like, oh, these are cheap fakes, that they're actually like, American people, please watch these. So it makes our case even stronger that we need to get rid of Joe. I think the media is all in on it. I think this is all strategized from years ago. I don't think they ever thought that they were going to run Joe again, knowing his steep decline. I'm just someone that believes that Democrats always have a plan.
You know, it was over a year ago, I dubbed it Operation Oust Joe Biden. And I thought they would institute Operation Oust Joe Biden along the way. And I think there were times where the establishment Democrats, along with the mainstream media, tried to do this, and it didn't really work, and it would ebb and flow with this Operation Oust Joe Biden. But I think you were right that the debate is going to be everything. I think for them, they are putting everything on this debate, that if he somehow falters, they know they're in a really, really bad spot. And maybe that's the time they institute it. But boy, they're late in the game right now, you know, to try to do this maneuver at the convention. I know they can do it, and there is ways that it's set up. They can even do it after the convention if they have to. But this is going to get really difficult for them.
Difficult, but not as difficult as convincing an entire nation to send in mail-in ballots because of COVID. Not too difficult when we know that just 4 years ago, they convinced the nation that they needed to stay inside and wear a mask in the shower for health. Please. Democrats can do it. They convinced an entire country of people to give up their rights and freedoms. And we don't think that they can swap out their candidate with a couple months to go. Oh.
Here's what I think they underestimate, though, Tom. I think the Democrats have underestimated the American people and the great awakening that is happening right now. I think they underestimate President Trump and the power of his policies to restore the middle class to what it was, to make the American dream and the opportunity of it available to literally everyone. When it starts with shutting down the border, it starts with drill, baby, drill, and you bring the price of everything down. It starts with sending federal agents and offering up help in all these cities that are crime-ridden. I don't care who the Democrats offer up. I don't think they can beat President Trump. In fact, I know they can't beat President Trump. I get back to what I'm saying. I believe President Trump is in the best position possible because he's the only guy that can rescue us from the despair that this administration, the Biden administration, has laid down on us. And so that's why I really, as much as America scares me in the place that it is in right now, I am really hopeful, not to sound corny, but I am really hopeful about the future, and I feel good about it. I got a strange feeling good things are happening for us.
I love your optimism. I hope that you're right. I think it's always better to campaign and fight like you're the underdog. So I would like the Republican Party to always remember that they are the underdog and will always be the underdog because of the voting process in and of itself.
Do they even know how to fight, though? The only one that fights is President Trump. When he's in office, then Republicans start fighting. As soon as he gets out of office, all of a sudden they roll over and give up. So I'm just waiting for the fight to unfold. I know you fight, of course, Tommy, and I try, but you know, I mean, we can't do it alone. So I just wish everybody would just get a little more backbone and start throwing some punches out there, and we'll take the Democrats out once and for all.
I hope you're right. A lot of that fighting back is just going to be getting people registered and getting people to early vote. And I think that's the big part of the challenge here. It's the hard work. It's the dirty work. It's the work that's going to take a lot of volunteers and a lot of effort, but it's the work that needs to be done regardless. But I thought there was something really interesting over the weekend, and that is on Bill Maher's show. Cuomo admitting that Donald Trump being Donald Trump is the reason that he's been targeted by the justice system. Good for him for having the stones to say it. Let's take a listen for those who missed it.
Well, I was always with you on the one in New York, the hush money trial. I don't think they should have brought that one. It was just always going to look like a sex case, and people were always just going to look at it that way. So anyway.
That case, the Attorney General's case in New York, frankly, should have never been brought. And if his name was not Donald Trump, and if he wasn't running for president, I'm the former AG in New York, I'm telling you that case would have never been brought. And that's what is offensive to people. And it should be, because if there's anything left, it's belief in the justice system.
I think Adam Kinzinger there was about to cry. I mean, he looked fragile. He looked like right on the cusp. But I give Cuomo a lot of credit for saying it. I haven't heard a lot of Democrats, a lot of elected Democrats and Democrats that carry as much weight as he at least did, being willing to admit that.
All right. I have a different take on this. So I think Cuomo has been wrong so often. The hurt that he had put on the people of New York and really the people of this country during the entire pandemic and all the nonsense that he pushed and the vitriol that he pushed against President Trump, that he realized he was wrong and he's despised by so many people. So now he thinks that he can get on board and speak the truth, which is literally what he's saying is most certainly true. No one can dispute what he said right there. But he thinks he's going to get a get out of jail free card by saying this. And I'm not buying it. And his brother, Chris, who also goes on and say, oh, now I'm taking the drug that starts with an I and all this stuff. And I'm on board. No, you two do not get a pass. You brothers brought the heat to the United States and you were responsible for most of the propaganda that was being pushed. I can't give them a pass just because they say the truth right here. I think that's what they want us to do. I think they want to gain favor with the people that despise them for so long. It doesn't do it for me. Not yet. They still owe me a lot more than that, Tommy.
Oh, I agree. There's a lot of people that owe us a lot of things for the whole COVID era, one of the dumbest times in American history. But I still think that him saying it is important. It doesn't give him a pass, but I'm just glad a Democrat was willing to put that out there because I haven't heard a lot of it. It's honest.
You know, isn't it though? Don't you think he knows that we're going to play this on your show? I'm going to play it on my Real America's Voice show, and we're going to talk about it. I just don't think he's worried about what he's saying that's good for the American people. He's saying because he knows he's going to get publicity over it. This is all about his own self. It's selfish what he's doing. And I think it's his own PR
but
game.
Do you
that he's
think,
playing.
though, it's not like if he runs for office again, he's ever going to have Republicans vote for him anyway. So I think he's actually taking much more of a leap by pissing off Democrats, because the first way to piss off a Democrat is to say anything nice or even remotely nice about Donald Trump. So as much as I agree that maybe he's trying to get himself back in the spotlight, I agree with you on that point. But I don't think that there's any gain for him in, making Republicans soften up to him. There's actually much more of a risk that he's pissing off Democrats. So I still give him credit.
Yeah, I guess. I just think between Chris and him, these two Cuomo brothers are so publicity hungry, man. I look at them and all I do is shake my head. And just the fact that he's sitting there next to Adam Kinzinger, I can't even take anything they say to heart, because I'm like looking at it and going, oh my Lord. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you on that point. But he's not the only one who wants to go, of course, on a media tour and, say things that are going to get some headlines, or at least from some people who find it super egregious. I want to play this clip for you. We've got an illegal immigration invasion. We've had an illegal immigration invasion for over 3.5 years now. But what's interesting to me is even in the carnage, the wreckage of what the Democrats have created with this open border, they are still more concerned with the illegal alien rapists and murderers and coddling them and their good name than the people that are victims of it. Let's take a listen to Simone Sanders. She got really mad about the invasion, but kind of the wrong part of it. Let's take a listen.
What do you tell the parents of those people, those young girls who were killed? This is absurdity. The preponderance of these people, Michael, are male.
But what is the difference between an illegal immigrant who unfortunately engages in that activity?
And we don't like that. I want to be clear. We don't use the term illegal. So undocumented individuals.
That's sweet. They're illegal aliens.
Undocumented individuals versus anyone else who commits the same crime. Well, I mean, it's so.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. I mean, so she really wouldn't like me because I don't even call them immigrants. I call them illegal aliens. And I often tell my co-host, who's one of the greatest co-hosts ever, Jen Horn in the morning, she'll say illegal immigrant. I was like, Jen, it's illegal alien. And then that's Michael Steele. Do you believe he used to be the head of the Republican Party? And he just rolls over. Oh, okay, well, undocumented. They're not undocumented. They're illegal. They've broken the law to get here. And they've had Joe Biden as an accomplice to help them get around the law to come in here. That's the kind of stuff I think that angers the American people and that is exposing the entire party for the fraud that it is. It's that kind of stuff that is going to put President Trump over the top.
Well, they're not going to be able to get away from this because in the last 2-3 weeks, you've had illegal immigrants in Texas, in Queens, New York, that are raping and murdering Americans, in Maryland, raping, murdering a young mother. And it's actually the violence. I've been talking about this because I don't know where the feminists are, but it's violence against women. Because that's who's being targeted here. I mean, we're all targets, right? But young women are especially vulnerable to the millions of illegal alien military-age men that have been led into this country who are now loitering around our streets. I was in New York City last week to do a little bit of Fox News, and I was walking around Times Square, and you look around, and you can tell that there is a big presence of military-aged illegal immigrant men wandering the streets of these sanctuary cities looking for their next target, looking for their next victim. And for the young women out there, I mean, gird your loins, because we are going to be the first targets for these people.
Yeah, you are. We're seeing it play out in real time. And some of the most scary countries are countries like Venezuela, where it seems like when they're raping and murdering these young women and girls, they're coming from Venezuela. Why? Because the leader of Venezuela is emptying out his prisons and sending them to the United States. That's an evil dictator saying, I don't want these people here. And we're welcoming them with open arms. And how dare the Biden administration say we're vetting these people? There is no vetting. We don't have any agreement with Venezuela to check who these people are. You talk to anybody that goes down to the border, they'll see passports strewn all over it. They dump their passports and they give a fake name when they come in. And lo and behold, our Customs and Border Protection give them notices to appear and basically virtually legalize them to come on into America with zero vetting. And yet they'll look us in the face and tell us, oh, no, they're vetted. And what happens, Tommy, every time a wild case unfolds of murder, mayhem, rape, you name it, sexual assault, oh, they were here before. They've been deported before. They came back in. They're here illegally. They murdered somebody in El Salvador. Oh, look at that. And we're supposed to be surprised by this?
What bothers me, too, is that even if you are vetting these people and they don't have a criminal history in their country of origin, that doesn't mean once they get here, they're not going to do something. So even if you are able to vet these people, it's like, oh, they don't have a record. Okay, you got a 16, 17-year-old kid coming from Venezuela, El Salvador, Ecuador, whatever. They get to the United States. They don't have a job. They don't have, they might have some family ties here, but they don't have much. And it doesn't take much for somebody who's 15, 16, 17 years old to come to this country and decide you're going to join one of the gangs, MS-13, whatever else is already operating in these cities. It doesn't take much to get there. And we've let in millions.
That's what wreaks havoc on American families, the MS-13 gang members pushing fentanyl and all of those things. But what about the other side of it? You've got these Chinese illegal aliens that are sneaking across the border. Do you think Xi Jinping is helping us vet Chinese? Of course not. So is he building a standing army in the United States? I'm sure some of them are here because they're trying to escape communist China. But I think many of them are here because they are going to do the bidding of Xi Jinping, and I promise you there's no way to vet a Chinese illegal alien because Xi Jinping is not going to open up the books and say, oh, yes, look at what this guy did in Beijing. It's not happening. No.
And it's not easy to just get out of communist China either. So that's something that people need to understand. You kind of need permission unless you truly are fleeing, but that's not an easy thing to do. They keep track of their people there, and they keep track of them well, something that we certainly don't have a record of here in the USA anymore. Last thing I do want to ask you, because I asked you before, your prediction for Trump's running mate. Who do you think it's going to be, and who do you want it to be?
So this is interesting. I got word that on the list was, and as many people know, but that it had been narrowed down to Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Byron Donalds, in that order, top three. And so I think the Florida connection poses a problem with Donalds and Rubio because of the whole electoral college situation. Now we're getting word, there's some rumblings that it's J.D. Vance. I will tell you, I'm very close to the campaign. There are some people close to the president that aren't happy about J.D. Vance because he wasn't always a loyalist. But President Trump has been able to put that aside at times. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's J.D. Vance. To answer your question, though, my pick, I really want Ben Carson. I think Ben Carson is a quiet, steady hand. If there was another pandemic, he'd be perfect to have President Trump to battle back against the Fauci types inside CDC and NIH. I love the idea of Ben Carson. I have a feeling it's not going to be him.
Yeah.
And I think he's also a guy that's not going to be trying to overshadow President Trump. Not that anybody could possibly do that, but President Trump needs a quiet, steady hand. And I think Ben Carson would be great for that. But I guess it's anybody's guess till Thursday. Who do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be Doug Burgum, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
I like that idea,
He's
by the
shown
way.
that he is out on the campaign trail. He's done more events than anybody else. And beyond that, he's a businessman. He's a businessman who knows how to get things done. I think that he has been loyal, especially during this campaign time after the primary. I think Doug Burgum would be an excellent choice. He checks no identity politics boxes, and I like that because it shows that we're not trying to pander, not trying to pick up votes for this, that, or the other. So I think that it will be Doug Burgum. And I'm hopeful for that. If it wasn't Doug Burgum, I would love Marco Rubio, but the Florida thing does pose a problem. J.D. Vance, I think he's too new, too young, too untested. He's a new name that's been thrown around, but I just quite frankly think that he needs a little more time to mature in the party. And I think that you need to take a look at somebody that might not necessarily be campaigning for 2028 on day one, but somebody who can be an heir apparent on day one. I'm not saying that's Doug Burgum either. I honestly think that Doug Burgum would just be a stabilizing force and, somebody that would be great for the party.
I think number one, you have to have somebody that's not going to hurt you, right? Because I don't think the presidential pick actually helps anybody. I think this election is so clear. If you're not decided between Joe Biden or President Trump, you're an idiot, man. These people that call themselves independents, how have you not picked a side? That's ridiculous. So Burgum doesn't hurt President Trump. And in fact, he comes off as a likable guy. I think that might be the most important thing, is to come off as a likable guy. I think Ben Carson's a likable guy. Some of the others may raise some questions to people because they're strong, outspoken people. That's a good thing in my mind. But Burgum's he just seems like a likable guy, right? Has anybody said anything negative about the guy?
That's the thing for me, is that politics do not consume Doug Burgum's life. He is independently wealthy and he's a businessman. So it seems to me like he would want to go in and do good things, but I don't necessarily think that he would try to position himself for 2028. But I do think that he would be a stabilizing force. I think that he would make those independents that are still out there feel a little more comfortable. And then I think as this all is going on and he can be that force for Donald Trump and be a right-hand man, then I think that you get Ron DeSantis ready for 2028. And that's my take on it, because you need somebody who's ready to go next, but not necessarily vying for it on day one. Someone that can do it in the background and just prepare. So that's my take on it.
Ron DeSantis is going to have to up the personality game just a little bit if he wants to do this again. But it'll be interesting to see.
You can have your personality can shine through much more when you don't have Donald Trump taking shots at you and you're not trying to battle against Donald Trump. I think that was a big part of the problem. And the likability thing is that he constantly had to tangle with the Donald Trump of it all. And in 2028, that's not going to be a problem. And in fact, Donald Trump would actually and hopefully probably get behind Governor DeSantis and propel him to the top. So that's my hope. And I'm optimistic that things will fall in line, but we still got to get to, about 135 days from now and win an election before any of that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing because one day at a time, in our business, the things that change in an instant and the news that breaks, it's crazy. So I just take it one day at a time. And next thing you know, November is going to be here. And honestly, I think that the big event, as everyone knows, Thursday night, this is going to be a big tell of how this moves forward. But again, I don't know. Providing we secure the vote, that's the most important thing. Securing the vote. I don't know how President Trump loses.
I like your optimism. Thanks for taking the time with me today. I certainly appreciate it and hope to have you back soon. God bless you. And we'll all be watching that CNN presidential debate on Thursday. Most views CNN's ever going to get.
Absolutely. Tomi Lahren, so great having you invite me on. I'm so honored to be here with you, and thank you so much.
Of course. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, folks, from bad to worse, breaking news. The Biden White House hires an absolute nutcase, anti-law enforcement terror sympathizer as an associate communications director. Yeah, that tracks. DEI bingo hits again, and it's time for final thoughts presented by Roundhouse Provisions. So just when you might have thought Joe couldn't out-weirdo his streak of DEI picks, well, he threw this cherry on top. You know, I really didn't think it could get any better, comically speaking, than the nuclear waste ladies luggage snatcher Samuel Brinton, but I stand corrected. Move over, Samuel Brinton and KJP. You've got some competition in the communications department with the promotion of Tyler Cherry, a non-binary individual who will now serve as Associate Communications Director. You know, he certainly looks the part for that DEI administration anyway, but his large history of controversial anti-white, anti-Israel, anti-law enforcement social media posts are raising some eyebrows, and for obvious reasons. After some backlash, Cherry tweeted that his old tweets do not reflect his current views, blah, blah, blah. Important to note, he wasn't 15 at the time of these tweets, but rather pushing 30, and he hasn't been pressed on which views he still holds and why, because liberals don't have to explain anything, as we know. I mean, none of this is surprising for the Biden White House. Calling for the abolishment of ICE and sympathizing with terror networks isn't out of the ordinary for that motley crew of communists over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Quite frankly, I would be more shocked if that team appointed a male who didn't wear a mesh crop top with applique rose petals. But this just further goes to show that Joe Biden isn't in charge over there. He's not making the decisions or calling the shots. Rather, his band of Gen Z and millennial DEI weirdos who don't know which bathroom to use, let alone how to navigate the most important role in the world, they are running the White House, and that should terrify you. But those are just my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live again at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.